Welcome back to Movies Outpost. Today we'll be diving into a mystery action thriller film titled Prisoners. Enjoy the recap. Our story unfolds with Keller Drover and his young son Ralph returning from a day's hunt. As they travel, Keller shares with Ralph the vital need to always be prepared for unexpected situations. Later that day, we see Keller and his family preparing to depart from their home, accompanied by his wife Grace and little girl Anna. Upon reaching their neighbor's home, they receive a warm welcome from Nancy Birch. Franklin Birch, the father, engages in playful activities with Anna and Joy, one of his own daughters. While everyone busies themselves with the preparations for the Thanksgiving dinner, Anna expresses her desire to play outside with Joy. Keller suggests they take Ralph for company, and the kids excitedly dash off. Outside, Anna and Joy get curious about an RV parked nearby, but are quickly redirected by Ralph and Eliza, their older siblings. Once dinner is over, Anna and Joy seek permission from the adults to return to the Drovers' house to search for a whistle Anna believes she's misplaced. With a nod of approval, the two girls race off excitedly. Time passes, and Keller, with a growing sense of unease, queries Ralph and Eliza about their little sister's whereabouts. He rushes home in search of the girls, but to no avail. Returning to the Birches, he finds a similar lack of information about Anna and Joy's location. Ralph suddenly remembers the RV they'd spotted earlier and leads Keller to its location. But the vehicle is gone, leading a troubled Keller to contact the police. Meanwhile, Detective Loki sits alone in a diner enjoying his meal when his phone rings, alerting him to a potential lead, the mysteriously missing RV. Detective Loki locates the RV and begins his inspection. Suddenly, the vehicle lurches into motion only to crash moments later. The RV begins to let out smoke, and Loki and fellow officers approach the crashed RV and begin searching it. He finds a man hiding in the back. They pull him out and cuff him. The man named Alex Jones is questioned about the missing girls, but Alex remains silent and uncooperative, leading to his arrest. Despite Loki's persistent interrogation, Alex denies any involvement in the girls' disappearance. Later that night, Loki pays a visit to the house of Alex's aunt, Holly Jones, where Alex is known to stay occasionally. He learns that Alex's RV has been cleared of any incriminating evidence and orders another police team to revisit Holly's house for a thorough search, as well as the woodlands. The next day, Loki makes his way to the Drovers' residence. Grace mentions Loki's exemplary record of case solving as told by his captain. Loki assures them that he's committed to finding Anna and Joy. His conversation is interrupted when Keller joins them. Loki shares the disappointing news that no evidence against Alex has been discovered, leading a disbelieving Keller to question how that could be. Loki attempts to calm the increasingly agitated Keller, reassuring him that all leads are being pursued and he's committed to his duty. As Loki departs, Keller inquires if Alex will remain in custody until the girls are found. Loki informs him that without formal charges, Alex will be released shortly. Later, Loki pleads with his police captain to hold Alex for one more day, but he denies the request, saying there's no evidence on him. Throughout the day and into the night, Loki makes several stops at known criminals' houses, the final one being at Father Patrick Dunn's residence. He spots Father Patrick unconscious inside and decides to investigate further. In the process, Loki stumbles upon a hidden basement. Inside, he discovers various statues and, chillingly, a bound body. He wakes Father Patrick, pressing him for information about the disturbing find. The next day, the search for the girls continues. Keller receives a call from Grace informing him that Alex is about to be released. Amidst a swarm of reporters, as Alex steps out into freedom, Keller confronts him aggressively, desperate for answers. In a whispered confession, Alex claims the girls didn't shed a tear until he left them, leaving Keller reeling before he is pulled away. Captain Richard admonishes Keller, informing him the police will overlook his outburst, but he needs to return home. Keller insists on Alex's rearrest, but Captain Richard suggests he relay the new information to Loki instead. Later, Loki visits Alex and Holly, questioning if Alex said anything to Keller. He probes Alex further, hinting that Holly could face jail if he's withholding the truth. After the visit, Loki calls Keller, informing him that he is no longer considering Alex a suspect. Back at home, Keller tries to console Grace, who is desperate for their daughter's return. She pleads with Keller to bring Anna back, and in response, Keller gives her calming medication. He entrusts Ralph with the care of Grace, telling him he needs to assist the police. Keller travels to Holly's house and keeps watch until nightfall. He spots Alex walking his dog, watching him closely. He sees Alex choke his dog and sing a tune his daughter used to sing. Armed, he confronts Alex while he walks his dog, demanding to know the origin of the Christmas tune Alex was singing. His questions are underscored by the threat of his weapon. The next day, Keller leads Franklin to his old home, revealing the captive Alex. Franklin reacts with shock, suggesting they should take Alex to the police. However, Keller insists they need to force a confession from Alex to save their daughters. Keller gives Alex a final chance to admit his guilt. The air grows heavy with suspense, punctuated by a loud thud as Keller screams at Alex, urging him to reveal what he knows. Meanwhile, Loki delves into old cases of child disappearances at the police station. His investigation leads him to Mrs. Milland, a woman whose child was abducted 26 years ago from the house where Alex's RV was initially spotted in front of. She tells Loki she is certain the person who took her son is the same person who took the two girls. Back at the station, he continues questioning Father Patrick about the body. Father tells him the man whose name he didn't know came to him to confess he had killed 16 children and that he was a family man and kept bragging about waging a war against the world. As evening sets in, Keller continues his relentless interrogation of Alex, who is now severely injured. Despite his certainty that Alex knows something vital, Alex remains stubbornly silent, unfazed by Keller's escalating threats. Meanwhile, a vigil for the missing girls takes place, with Franklin present to console his grieving family. Loki, also at the vigil, observes Bob Taylor placing a teddy bear among the candles. When Bob leaves abruptly, Loki follows, giving chase when Bob breaks into a run. The pursuit leads Loki to a house where Bob attacks him and ultimately manages to escape near a busy road. The next day, news of Bob being a new suspect in the case reaches Franklin and Nancy. Despite the development, Franklin leaves with Keller to question Alex again. Keller suspects a connection between Alex and Bob, determined to uncover the truth. A visibly upset Franklin accompanies him. Back at the station, Loki informs Captain Richard of Alex's unexplained absence since walking his dog several nights ago. He questions why Alex wasn't kept under surveillance and emphasizes the need to know everyone's whereabouts. Poring over his earlier interrogation of Alex, Loki seeks new leads. His efforts are interrupted by a phone call, leading him to a shopping center to meet with a witness regarding Bob. The checkout girl tells him that Bob comes in every week and buys children's clothes in all different sizes. He leaves her his card in case Bob returns. At the same time, Keller, at the abandoned house, confides in Franklin that they're running out of time. Upon returning home, Franklin faces Nancy's inquiries about his mysterious absences, and he finally reveals the truth to her. Shortly thereafter, Nancy confronts Keller about Alex's abduction. She begins insisting on seeing Alex herself. They take her to the abandoned house, and Nancy goes into the bathroom where he is being held. When she takes the bag off his head, she is shocked at the sight she sees. She pleads with Alex to help locate her daughter, but his only words are "help me." In a surprising turn, she frees Alex, who in response attacks her and attempts an escape, breaking the window and then slashing Keller with a piece of broken glass. Franklin and Keller get a hold of him and tie him up again, and Keller screams at Nancy for untying him. The Birches leave, and Keller begins constructing a box to trap him in that he can't escape from. Later that night, he returns to the Birches' home and tells them he wants to show them something. He then demonstrates to Franklin and Nancy his extreme new method of extracting information from Alex. They control everything from the outside. No light gets in, barely enough room to sit down, and that he rigged the taps to either come out scorching hot or ice cold, and a small tube where they speak to him through, and a photo of their daughters on the box, in case they feel sorry for him. Franklin argues that Keller doesn't truly know if Alex is guilty and demands an end to this. However, Keller simply hands him the hammer and tells him to free him if he wants and exits. Franklin begins to tear the wall down, but Nancy intervenes before Franklin can open the box and tells him to think of their daughter, and they both depart. In another part of town, Bob breaks into the Birches' home and intrudes on Eliza's space unbeknownst to her that he is in the house. As Franklin and Nancy return home, Nancy tells Franklin that they won't help Keller, but they won't stop him either. As they head upstairs, they are confronted by an angry Eliza, who insults them both for leaving her alone so late. Bob, who swiftly disappeared, heads to the Kellers' home, breaking in and awakening Grace in the process. Mistaking the creaking floorboards for Anna, Grace is left disoriented when Bob slips away once more and she notices her bedroom window now open. Ralph, who also wakes up, attempts to soothe her while Loki makes an entrance and she recounts the story to him. As he is writing this all down, he notices all her medication on her bedside table and assumes she may be hallucinating. He then adds in that they didn't check the basement and they head down there, and Loki, to his surprise, is stunned by how well put together it is, with canned foods and tools, and she adds in that her husband likes to always be prepared. He notices a bag of lye out of place and half empty and asks where Keller is so late. She tells him looking for their daughter with the police. Loki now suspicious because he knows that's not true. The following day, Loki begins trailing Keller, shadowing his movements around town into the abandoned house. A garbage truck begins honking at Loki for blocking the road, and Keller notices him. He confronts Loki. Upon being asked about his destination, Keller fabricates a story about needing to buy something from the store. Loki confronts Keller about his lies about helping the police at night, but that they both know that's not true, and informs him of Alex's disappearance. Keller counters by suggesting Alex left town out of guilt or shame. In a fit of anger, Keller insists Loki focus on finding his daughter rather than trailing him. Tired and frustrated, Keller heads home and succumbs to sleep, only to be haunted by a vision of Anna. He pleads with her to identify her kidnapper, but he awakens before receiving an answer. Loki begins investigating Keller and finds information on his late father who had passed and left his son Keller, a building he owned close by where he had followed him earlier. Loki now suspicious if that may have been where he was headed before. Driven by desperation, Keller returns to Alex, subjecting him to severe pain to extract any new information. Alex, screaming in pain, mumbles something under his breath, and Keller, hearing this, shuts the tap and asks him what he had said. He repeats his words, saying, "I am not Alex," confusing Keller. He tells him to stop with the riddles, and Alex shakily says, "I just wanted to play, and he never came." Keller begins praying simultaneously. Loki arrives at the house, and Keller notices him through the window and hastily hides. Loki breaks a window and steps inside and finds Keller sprawled on the floor and wakes him, and he proceeds to inspect the house. Keller guides him around, but Loki is interrupted by a call about Bob being sighted and asks the girl to send him the car's registration plates and hastily departs, leaving Keller behind. Loki heads to Bob's home and begins to question him about his abrupt departure the other night and why he was buying children's clothes if he doesn't have any. Bob attempts to evade him but is caught and bound as Loki rummages through the house while calling for reinforcements. He stumbles upon a locked room. Upon breaking in, he discovers numerous crates. Inside, he finds an assortment of venomous snakes entangled with blood-soaked clothes. Each crate reveals similar contents. In the final crate, he uncovers a book filled with mazes. He swiftly secures it and leaves the premises. Later, Loki informs Keller that while no bodies were discovered, the Birches identified some of Joy's clothes from the crates. Recognizing one of Anna's socks among the items, Keller breaks down, accusing Loki of wasting precious time and not saving his daughter. Back at home, news reporters flock to the drover's residence. Keller instructs Ralph to avoid engagement, but Ralph retorts that Eliza has informed him that the girls are no longer alive. Keller refutes this claim vehemently, insisting they must keep Grace unaware. Ralph criticizes Keller for leaving the family to fend for themselves, prompting Keller to storm off in anger. Meanwhile, Loki observes Bob scrutinizing the mazes he had discovered. When Loki interrogates him about his drawings, a confrontation ensues. Bob manages to grab an officer's gun and arms himself during the skirmish, effectively shutting down any hope of him divulging information to the detectives. In the abandoned house, Keller seeks divine forgiveness, confessing to Alex his uncertainty about what to do next while maintaining his conviction that Alex holds some vital knowledge. Alex cryptically hints that the girls can be found in the maze. Keller frantically demands the location of the maze, but his efforts are fruitless. Leaving the fruitless interrogation behind, the next day Keller visits Alex's Aunt Holly and extends an apology for his reaction at the police station, and that he feels responsible for Alex running away. She invites him in, and they have a short conversation about how her young son passed away from cancer, and that she and her husband started seeing things differently, and adopting Alex helped. Keller subtly tells her that he keeps dreaming about being lost in a maze. She apologizes to him and tells him that Alex had an accident when he was younger, and that her missing husband used to keep snakes, and that Alex was terrified of them. She offers him a coffee, but he notices the newspaper which headlines Bob's death and no bodies found. She apologizes again, thinking he had already heard the news. In another part of town, Captain Richard tries to console a visibly distraught Loki, who feels deeply frustrated by the case's slow progress. In a fit of rage, he knocks everything off his desk, but his attention is drawn to a photograph of a pendant remarkably similar to the maze Brad drew. Amid this revelation, he receives a call. Loki returns to Bob's house, where he's informed that most of the evidence, including the mazes, are replicas. Despite this, Loki insists on a correlation and questions how Bob acquired Anna and Joy's clothes. Racing back to the drover's house, he discovers evidence that Bob stole Anna's socks. As Keller returns home, Grace receives a call. She dashes out of the house, notifying Keller that Joy has been found, though Anna remains missing. They hurry to the hospital, where they meet with Franklin and Nancy. As Keller attempts to question Joy, he is halted. Joy recounts the sequence of events leading to her rescue and mentions that Keller was there. Panicked, Keller races away, with Loki hot on his heels. He speeds off in his truck, jumping the curb and dashing through oncoming traffic with Loki in pursuit. After losing Keller, Loki heads to the abandoned house, assuming that was where Keller was headed, but he isn't there. Loki then hears loud banging and Alex's cries of help. Gun at the ready, he storms the building, heading upstairs towards where the sound is coming from. Meanwhile, Keller arrives at Holly's house, offering to help with household repairs as a form of penance. He notices her holding her hand. She tells him she burned herself today and feels a bit icky. Despite this, she accepts his request and proceeds to invite him in, but Keller doesn't waste any time and asserts his belief that the girls were kept in her home. But before he can turn around, Holly brandishes a gun at him, holding him captive. Holly coerces Keller into wearing handcuffs and orders him to drink a sedative, promising him a reunion with his daughter in return. As Keller's phone rings, Holly instructs him to discard it and throw it in the sink. She then leads him outside and confesses to him about a series of child abductions she undertook with her late husband, and even adding that Alex was the first child they ever took and that his name was Jimmy or Barry. She also admits she forgot all about Bobby Taylor till she read about him in the paper. She sees the abductions as a warped crusade to expose the monstrous nature in people, akin to Keller's transformation. She makes him move the car forward and then get out again. Holly admits that Alex was not the one who hurt Anna or Joy, she herself was the perpetrator. She then guides Keller to a pit in the ground, but he refuses to get in, so she shoots him in the leg and forces him in. As Keller sits injured at the bottom of the hole, Holly hints at a sinister reunion with his daughter in that very pit. She then recovers the hole with the car and drives Keller's truck off the property so no one notices it, as well as his tool bag, in which he had a hidden gun. Meanwhile, Loki is directed to inform Holly that the police have located Alex. As Keller writhes in the hole, he comes across multiple corpses, as well as Anna's red whistle, and makes a prayer that she is protected. Loki makes tracks and arrives at Holly's residence and knocks, but Holly, preoccupied with getting ready to inject Anna with a substance, doesn't hear him. He finds the door unlocked and invites himself in and begins to look around. He comes across a photo of her late husband and notices the maze pendant on his necklace. This sudden realization shocks Loki. He prepares himself. He hears the floorboards creaking inside. He investigates further, and just as Holly is injecting Anna with a substance, he storms in and tells her to drop it and put her hands up. In her final moments, Holly asks for her remains to be cremated and not to rot in a box. She turns around, shooting, and bullets fly across the room, one hitting Loki. But he wins the gunfight. Injured, he stumbles and grabs Anna. Sirens on, he rushes Anna to the hospital. Covered in blood and struggling to focus on the road in the rain, he miraculously makes it to the emergency room. The next day, the newspaper headlines Barry Milland, aka Alex Jones, reunited with family after 26 years, and that Keller is still missing. Grace, Anna, Nancy, and Joy visit Loki in the hospital. Grace tells Loki that she has not heard from Keller and asks Loki if he will search for him. With a soft sigh, she admits she misses Keller. Later that night, he returns to Holly's house. Loki watches as the excavation team departs. Just as he prepares to leave, he hears the faint sound of a whistle from the pit where Keller is trapped. The whistling continues, but Loki dismisses it, leaving Keller's fate unknown. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.